Your toothpaste costs $8. It contains sodium fluoride, the exact same active ingredient that's been in every major tube since 1960. Crest, Colgate, Sensodyne. 60 years, the same molecule. A $21 billion a year industry built around it. In 2023, a research team in Egypt took 30 extracted teeth, induced lesions, and ran a controlled test, ginger gel versus standard sodium fluoride. They measured enamel recovery with a laser diagnostic device. Objective numbers, no interpretation needed. Ginger won. That study didn't make it into any toothpaste ad. No brand reformulated, no dentist handed out a printout. Because the thing that beat the standard costs less than $1, grows in the ground, and belongs to no one. Nearly 90% of American adults have had tooth decay at some point in their lives. That number hasn't moved in 20 years, not because dentistry isn't advancing, but because the system isn't designed to close the problem. It's designed to manage it. Here's what that management actually costs. One composite filling runs $150 to $350, depending on the tooth and how deep the drill goes. A routine visit, a single cavity, maybe a second one next year, and before long, you're spending $400 to $600 annually on a mouth that keeps needing the same repairs. Most people accept this the way they accept car maintenance. It feels inevitable. But there's a stage before the drill that almost nobody talks about in the dental chair. It's called a white spot lesion. You've probably seen one, a chalky, dull patch on the surface of a tooth, often appearing after braces, or slowly forming on the gum line. Most patients assume it's early-stage decay, bring it to their dentist, and hear one of two things. Let's keep an eye on it, or we should take care of that. What almost never gets said is the third option. This lesion is still fully reversible, and there's a documented home protocol that can close it without a drill. White spot lesions form when enamel loses calcium and phosphate ions through acid attack. The outer crystal layer becomes porous. Light scatters differently through that porosity. That's the white appearance. But the structure underneath is still intact. The process hasn't reached the dentin. Nothing has been destroyed yet. Only depleted. Cavo's diagnodent, a laser diagnostic device used in clinical research and progressive dental practices, measures exactly this. It fires a laser at the tooth surface and reads the fluorescence. Healthy enamel scores between 0 and 13. A score of 14 to 20 indicates an outer enamel lesion, classified as D1, detectable but sitting squarely in the reversible zone. A score above 30 means the lesion has progressed into territory where restorative work is the only path forward. Most patients never hear the number. They just hear cavity or watch it. The Amish enter this story in a specific way. And it's worth being precise here, because the headline version of Amish don't go to dentists and have great teeth is simply wrong. Studies of Amish communities show higher caries rates than the general American population, largely because they lack access to fluoridated municipal water and rarely use preventive dental products. That's the honest picture. But within communities that actively avoid commercial chemistry, Amish and otherwise, a subset of people practice calcium-based home remineralization that's been quietly generating academic interest. Researchers weren't drawn to this because it's exotic. They were drawn to it because, when they measured the results with the same tools used in clinical trials, the numbers didn't match the skepticism. One composite filling, $150 to $350. A 14-day home remineralization course using the same ingredients discussed in peer-reviewed research, $0 to $3. The lesion that warranted the filling may never have needed one if the intervention happened at the right stage, with the right compounds, at the right concentration. That's what the next part is about. What's actually in that powder, and why each ingredient does what the research says it does. So, what's actually in this powder? And why does a home ingredient do what a $12 tube of Sensodyne Pro-Enamel can't? Start with eggshell. Dried, heat-treated, ground to a fine powder. Eggshell is 94% calcium carbonate, and when milled below 20 microns, it converts in contact with salivary phosphate into hydroxyapatite, the exact mineral that makes up 96% of tooth enamel, not something similar, the same molecule. A 2025 WJARR study confirmed that nanoparticles from chicken eggshell carry the same chemical profile as synthetic hydroxyapatite found in premium products like Apogard Premio at a fraction of the cost. Particle size isn't a footnote here. It's the entire mechanism. Below 20 microns, remineralization. Above 100 microns, abrasion. The difference between a grinder run for 2 minutes and one run for 8 is the difference between repairing enamel and scratching it. Bentonite clay solves a different problem entirely. Exposed dentinal tubules, microscopic channels running from the tooth surface toward the nerve, are what cause cold sensitivity. Sensodyne's classic formula uses potassium nitrate to blunt the nerve signal. Bentonite physically blocks the tubule opening. A 2024 PubMed-indexed bentodent trial confirmed this through scanning electron microscopy. Bentonite particles mechanically occluded dentinal tubule entrances. The pathway gets sealed, not muted. Clove has a paper trail that runs straight through mainstream dentistry. Its active molecule, eugenol, is the same compound used in zinc oxide eugenol cement, a temporary filling material in clinical use for over a century, valued for its analgesic and antibacterial properties. When traditional communities placed cloves against a painful tooth, they were delivering the same molecule a dentist uses, in unrefined form. Baking soda's role is narrow but precise, pH 8.3, alkaline enough to neutralize post-meal acid before it drops below 5.5 and begins dissolving enamel. It also suppresses Streptococcus mutans, the bacteria that converts sugar into lactic acid, the direct driver of cavity formation. Above 15% of total mixture volume, it stops being a buffer and starts irritating gum tissue. The dose determines whether it protects or damages. Most homemade recipes circulating online fail not in concept, but in proportion. The mechanism is real, the margin for error is narrow. That's exactly what the formulation needs to address. The proportions matter, but first, one question a reasonable person asks. Is this actually better than fluoride or just cheaper? In 2023, an Egyptian research team took 30 extracted human incisors, induced standardized white spot lesions, and applied 3 treatments: ginger gel, rosemary gel, and standard sodium fluoride, the active ingredient in Colgate cavity protection and virtually every mass-market paste. Recovery was measured using diagnodent fluorescence scores. The highest remineralization didn't come from fluoride. It came from ginger. Rosemary was second. Sodium fluoride was third. A February 2025 PMC study, PMC 1187E6320, ran a broader test: ginger, ashwagandha, and maca dentifrices against a fluoride control, measuring surface microhardness recovery. Ginger showed the highest structural hardness recovery of the entire group. All 3 naturals equaled or exceeded fluoride on at least one primary metric. Why does ginger remineralize? 2 mechanisms at once. ICP analysis confirmed Zingiber officinale releases natural fluoride ions. The same ion standard paste delivers from a biological source. Simultaneously, ginger's active compounds, gingerols and shogaols, suppress Streptococcus mutans directly. Fluoride makes enamel more acid resistant. Ginger does that and reduces bacterial acid production at the source. 1 mechanism versus 2. The reason this never became the next Colgate isn't complicated. Sodium fluoride can be registered as a patented active clinical ingredient. Ginger root cannot. No exclusivity means no marketing budget. And no marketing budget means the 2023 study sits on PubMed, while a Sensodyne ad runs before your video. One critical detail: the ginger that works in these studies is not supermarket ground ginger. Industrial drying temperatures degrade gingerols into less active compounds. Effective drying stays at or below 60 degrees Celsius. Above that threshold, flavoring. Below it, active medicine. That distinction determines whether the powder does anything at all. The data is stacked. What remains is the exact protocol. Amounts, preparation, timing, each step mapped directly to why it works. The formulation isn't complicated, but every ingredient has a hard limit, and crossing it flips the result. The base is eggshell. 4 tablespoons of dried shell baked at 110 degrees Celsius for 10 minutes to sterilize. Then run through a coffee grinder, not a blender, for a full 6 to 8 minutes. After that, sieve it. Anything that doesn't pass through goes back in. This part matters more than it sounds. Coarse particles above 100 microns behave like sandpaper on enamel. Fine powder below 20 microns rebuilds it. Same ingredient, opposite outcome depending on how long you ran the grinder. Equal part bentonite clay, another 4 tablespoons, food grade or cosmetic grade. One thing to keep in mind, bentonite absorbs metal ions from surfaces it touches, which gradually pulls it out of the mechanism you need. Mix and store it in glass. A wooden spoon, never metal. Then a teaspoon each of ground clove, baking soda, and ginger. That ratio keeps eugenol, clove's active molecule, at around 5 to 8% of the total mix. Above that, it shifts from antiseptic to irritant. The same reason dental eugenol cement is temporary, not permanent. Baking soda is where most people quietly ruin the whole thing. It feels harmless. It's baking soda. But pushed above 15% of the total mix, it drives oral pH high enough to start aggravating gum tissue. Consistent overuse leads to gum recession. Fixing that surgically runs $200 to $600 per site. 1 teaspoon in this recipe keeps it useful. More turns it into the problem it was supposed to prevent. The ginger needs one specific condition. It has to be dried below 60 degrees Celsius to keep gingerols intact. The standard supermarket jar went through industrial heat processing. What's left mostly flavors the powder. For the active compounds to survive, low temperature drying is non-negotiable. Everything goes into a sealed glass jar, stored away from light. It holds for up to 3 months. Each brushing uses about half a gram. A small pinch picked up with fingertips. Don't dip the brush into the jar directly. Contamination shortens shelf life. 2 minutes, twice a day. After brushing, don't rinse straight away. Leave the residue in contact with the surface for another minute or 2. The mineral layer needs that window to start integrating before water clears it away. First noticeable change comes around day 7, stable remineralization, day 14. One timing mistake that undoes everything, eating or drinking anything acidic within 30 minutes of brushing, coffee, orange juice, kombucha. Enamel stays in an active mineral uptake window for 20 to 30 minutes after application. Fresh crystallization in progress. Acid hits that window and dissolves the new layer before it sets. The powder did its job. The coffee canceled it. Full batch cost, $3 to $4, lasting roughly 2 months. Against Sensodyne Pro Enamel at $9 to $12, a tube every 6 weeks, the numbers speak for themselves. But the real difference isn't price. It's that one formula suppresses the nerve signal while the other closes the channel that carries it. A 2-month supply for $3. That number sounds almost absurd against what the dental market actually looks like at scale. The global fluoride toothpaste market sat at $15.72 billion in 2025, projected to reach $28.15 billion by 2035, growing 6% annually. Over 75% of products are built around fluoride as the active ingredient. That's not a health market. That's a repurchase market, designed around a product you consume and replace every 6 weeks forever, without the underlying problem ever being resolved. A standard 2-adult household, 2 tubes of Colgate Total or Crest Pro Health Monthly runs $180 to $240 a year. 2 routine checkups, $100 to $200. 1 filling annually per person, $150 to $300. Realistic yearly total, $430 to $740 for 2 people who consider themselves diligent. The same household on a home powder protocol, $120 to $200 a year. The 10-year gap between those 2 tracks, $3,000 to $5,000, before any complications. 1 root canal runs $800 to $1,500. A crown adds $1,000 to $1,800. A single implant starts at $3,000. These aren't rare outcomes. They're the downstream cost of managing early decay instead of reversing it. Sodium fluoride itself isn't a molecule found in nature and refined for health. It's a byproduct of aluminum smelting and phosphate fertilizer production. Hexafluorosilicic acid recovered from industrial scrubbers and converted. Its entry into toothpaste in the 1950s was backed by real but narrow research. Cavity reduction in children in fluoridated communities. The adult remineralization mechanism is more complex. Direct ionic replenishment, calcium and phosphate delivered to the enamel surface, is the primary structural recovery pathway. Fluoride assists, Ca2+ and PO43- rebuild. The current commercial pivot makes this visible. Nano-hydroxyapatite paste, Apogard Premio, Biomin F, Rise Well, is now marketed as the modern alternative at $15 to $25 a tube. The science is legitimate, but the 2025 WJARR study confirmed that hydroxyapatite nanoparticles from chicken eggshell are morphologically and chemically identical to commercially manufactured synthetic NHAP, one molecule. Two price points, $0 and $20. On Wellness Mama and Reddit's r/natural health, the pattern repeats. Cold sensitivity gone within 2 weeks, white spots visibly reduced within a month, and, the detail that lands hardest, a dentist visit with no new decay for the first time in years. Not clinical proof, but a human dimension of what the lab scores already showed. The system isn't broken, it's working exactly as designed, just not in your favor. That's the machine. Now here's what using this protocol actually looks like past the first 2 weeks. After the 14-day remineralization window, daily use isn't necessary. Drop to 4 or 5 times a week. Maintenance mode, not active repair. The mineral layer is already integrating. Pushing it daily past that point doesn't accelerate results. It just increases wear on gum tissue over time. One timing rule that doesn't get mentioned enough. After anything acidic, citrus, fermented foods, apple cider vinegar, wine, wait 30 to 40 minutes before brushing. Acid temporarily softens the enamel surface. Brushing in that window doesn't clean the tooth. It removes a layer of it. This applies to any toothpaste, not just the powder. For a family of 4, a 500 milliliter jar of the powder lasts 3 to 4 months. Total cost $5 to $8 for the entire period. Against 4 tubes of standard paste monthly at $28 to $40, that's $336 to $480 a year, reduced to under $30. The math stops being interesting and starts being uncomfortable. What this protocol doesn't replace is worth saying clearly. Deep decay, D3 or D4 lesions, pulpitis, periodontal disease, requires clinical intervention. Spontaneous pain at night, swelling, sensitivity that doesn't respond to anything. Those are pulp signals, and the drill is the only answer there. This method operates in the prevention and early reversal zone. Knowing that boundary isn't a disclaimer, it's what makes the rest of the information trustworthy. By 2025, nanohydroxyapatite dentifrices were already officially recommended in Japan, Switzerland, and the UK as fluoride alternatives for children under 6 and adults with fluorosis. The Ca/P remineralization mechanism has academic recognition. What it doesn't have is a $15 billion distribution network behind it. The market for fluoride products grows 6% every year, not because it's solving the problem, but because it's keeping it at a manageable, recurring level. A product that fully resolves the issue is a bad business model. Eggshell is a bad business model. That's precisely why you hadn't heard any of this before today.